Amid the fires of war now fully engulfing the galaxy, the momentum of the Republic is only growing after a string of recent victories. Hopes for diplomatic solutions have once again been temporarily rekindled, as we enter a phase where negotiations between the major belligerents and their potential local allies become ever more important. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. We're glad to have you with us on our next venture into the Star Wars universe. As is our custom, we invite you to get comfortable and negotiate the purchase of a beverage or perhaps a rocket launcher from your preferred vendor as we recount the tale of trial and tribulation that was the Onderonian Civil War. Though the Battle of Umbara was over, its repercussions were only beginning to be felt. The Republic was demonstrating its full might, as they maintained the front lines while suppressing a full planetary insurrection on Umbara. This was particularly impressive, given that the Umbarans were feared for their technological and military prowess. The CIS were now more aware than ever that the scales were tipping in the Republic's favor, as they were steadily regaining worlds back into their fold. In light of this, both sides became open to diplomatic talks once again. This was most likely thanks to the Separatist Parliament, as the majority of the Republic Senate was still galvanized towards continuing the war, due to the perceived hostility of the CIS, a result of Dooku's intentional efforts to undermine prior peace talks. Nonetheless, they were ushered to acceptance by the peace faction, and so both sides met for a conference upon the neutral planet of Mandalore, with Senators Amidala, Organa and Mothma representing the Republic, and Senators Atal, Fonti and Lawise representing the CIS. While this could have been a landmark moment, with hindsight we know this conference was certain to fail from the start. The Republic delegates were restricted on certain items, one of them being the recognition of the CIS as an official state, and this was the first thing Senator Atal brought up as a prerequisite to any further discussion. Though this is conjecture on our part, it is possible that Dooku had sent Atal there intentionally, knowing her confrontational nature, and with her being the leader of the Parliament's pro-war faction, it was likely that she would not be willing to compromise. The discussions were deadlocked from the beginning, and it was further soured with the arrival of Lux Bonteri, son of the late Senator Mina Bonteri, who decried Dooku as a traitor and the mastermind behind his mother's death. After this, things quickly broke down further, and the conference ended prematurely. That wasn't to be the end of the diplomatic moves in the galaxy, however. Senator Kupat Roshti of the Togruta colony world of Kiros requested aid from the Jedi Council as a CIS force of some number made way for them. The Jedi promptly answered, but upon the arrival of the force, led by Jedi Generals Kenobi and Skywalker, instead of colonists, all they found were battle droids and a Zagarian named Darch Dinar demanding their surrender. Dinar planted bombs throughout the colony and threatened to detonate them should they not comply. Kenobi utilized his quick thinking and challenged Dinar to a Zagarian duel. As the duel was underway, Skywalker and his Padawan Ahsoka Tano searched for and successfully disarmed the bombs. With these out of the way, Kenobi quickly dropped his ruse, and they were able to capture Dinar, who revealed the missing colonists had been taken to Zagaria. This was alarming for the Jedi Council, as not only were they on Zagaria, but they were to be sold at an official royal auction. Such a thing hadn't happened for millennia, and signaled not only the re-emergence of the Zagarian slave empire, but also slavery in the galaxy outside of Hutt space. Before the auction, the Jedi Council dispatched a small force to find and hopefully free the Togrutans, consisting of Kenobi, Skywalker, Tano, Captain Rex, and R2-D2. The group was able to infiltrate the palace on Zagaria and locate Roshti, but they were captured not long after and enslaved by the Zagarians. Thankfully, as luck would have it, they would be freed thanks to Dooku's meddling, as he insisted that the Queen of Zagaria, Mirage Sintel, execute the Jedi. She refused, leading to her being killed by Dooku, but not before Sintel revealed the location of the Togurtans to Skywalker, whom she held as a personal slave. With this, he linked up with Ahsoka and contacted the Republic for assistance. They were able to free the rest of their team along with the colonists before destroying the slave facility and fleeing the system. The Zagarian hopes of resurrecting the slave trade were dashed for the foreseeable future, thanks in part to the power struggle which ensued on Zagaria after the Queen's demise. Suffice to say, they were well out of the fight. Another situation was beginning to develop, and this one would be far more detrimental to the CIS than any blow currently struck by the Republic. We shall now turn our attention to the jungle planet of Onderon. Onderon was a primarily human-inhabited planet, and it possessed very little strategic importance, as its location lay only on the minor Lesser Lantillian route, rather than any of the galaxy's primary hyperlanes. Likewise, it had what could be considered normal resource levels, but nothing that would be of critical importance to the greater picture for either side, hence why neither side had made a substantial bid for it until now. The CIS took control of the planet in the early stages of the conflict in a coup that placed the pro-separatist candidate Sanjay Resh on the throne, and imprisoned the previous king Ramses Dendep, who had vowed to remain neutral within the confines of the royal palace. Though successful in its immediate goals, the change in leadership was not well received, as Dendep was a popular ruler, and Rash's takeover heavily relied on the droid army loaned to him by the CIS. A rebel cell in favor of the reinstallment of Dendep did arise, and throughout the war they harassed the droids wherever they could, until hopefully they would find an opportunity to liberate their planet. Their perseverance would eventually pay dividends, as in late 20 BBY, the juggernaut that was the Grand Army of the Republic held the momentum, and was beginning to put a considerable strain on the droid army. Likely bolstered by the nearby events on Umbara, the rebels made contact with the Jedi Council, requesting aid in their fight to liberate their planet. The Council, while sympathetic to their cause, could not spare them manpower to fight the war on Onderon. What's more, they did not want to be seen as insurgency supporters. Skywalker came up with a plan that required little Republic involvement, but could still help liberate the planet, as the rebels did not lack the stomach for the fight nor the manpower. All they needed was training and the equipment. Though they were still hesitant, they gave Skywalker the go-ahead to try this new strategy. Skywalker made for Onderon, accompanied by Tano, Rex and Kenobi. The team landed on the planet and was able to quickly make contact with the rebels, who were being led by the Guerrera siblings Saw and Steela. In their company was also the rogue senator of Onderon, Lux Bonteri. The Jedi advisory team quickly got to work training the rebel cell, including instruction on the different types of droids used by the CIS and their various capabilities. After a short time, however, they were attacked by a droid squadron that was sweeping the area, having detected the unregistered ship that had dropped off Skywalker's team. Their newfound skills were put to the test, and they passed with flying colors, having destroyed the squadron with minimal help from the Jedi. With the Jedi having taught the insurgents the required skills and having passed their trial by fire, the real test was to begin, and so they headed out of the jungle to infiltrate the city of Aziz, the capital of Onderon, where they would set their new plans in motion. Once inside, the rebels began to harass the local droid garrison. They were highly successful in attacking and then blending back into the crowd. The droids had no way of countering them, and this began to affect Rash's standing, though he could do little to stop them. Seeing that the rebels were doing well, Skywalker and Kenobi decided to depart and report their progress to the Council. They advised the rebels to aim for higher-level targets, as merely attacking droids would only mark them as terrorists in the eyes of the people. They needed to make clear to the people what they were fighting for. Having given their final advice, the majority of the party left, although Commander Tano remained to observe and advise them. After debating their next course of action, the rebels decided to attack the power facility within Aziz. Without it, the droids would be put in a very precarious position, as would Rash himself. This would not be easy, however, as the important installation was heavily guarded by the droids and fortifications, including large walls, with a heavily reinforced entrance. The rebels decided to commandeer an AA tank and use it to break through the gate and destroy the main generator. Waiting until nightfall, they attacked a droid patrol, picking them off slowly, intentionally giving the droids enough time to call in for reinforcements. Soon enough, their prize arrived. They were able to successfully capture it, and they quickly made way for the facility before the droids realized they had a tank missing. The fight was brief, and the rebels were nearly overcome by the droid commandos that were put on guard there, but the rebels emerged victorious and destroyed the generator. This served as the signal for all their comrades around the capital to attack any droids within reach. Though we aren't given numbers, this attack was likely severely damaging to the garrison, as not long after, Rash requested Dooku for reinforcements, which he granted, and he would also send a general to command them given Rash's ineptitude. In the aftermath of the attack, a wave of support followed for the rebels. The people who had once feared them, or at least doubted their ability to make a real impact, now supported them, with some even joining and swelling their ranks. As their size had become fairly large, they decided to elect an official leader. Given her level-headedness and her actions during the operation, the group nearly unanimously elected Steela. She accepted her role in stride, and continued the attacks on the droids with renewed vigor, as well as making it clear through recorded holograms that the goal of the insurgents was the restoration of King Dendup. Meanwhile, their opposition had not been idle. Though Rash had no reasonable plan to deal with the rebels, the newly arrived super tactical droid Kalani, sent by Count Dooku, believed he did. With the rebels now fully allying themselves with the cause of restoring Dendup Rash, Kalani planned a public execution for the deposed king on the grounds of inciting insurrection. This was an obvious trap, but given what was at stake, they had no choice but to act. Saw acted prematurely, against the advice of Steela, and tried to rescue Dendup before the execution, only for himself to be captured and the next day marched to the execution grounds in front of the palace alongside Dendup. Just as the execution was about to commence, the rebels pounced. They were able to storm the stage and free both Dendup and Saw, but were cornered as they tried to make their escape and were forced to surrender. Though this appears to be the end, an unexpected development saved them in the form of the commander of the Royal Army, General Tandin, who arrived with a squad of soldiers and held Rash at spear point. The rebels and his soldiers were able to make their escape thanks to him, and Tano intervened to save Tandin himself as well. They all escaped, safely fleeing the city with the king. The rebels fled eastward towards the Highlands and set up a base there, where they began to broadcast messages of Dendup embracing the rebels as liberators and inspiring the people to revolt. The situation was now nearly untenable for Rash, as the droids not only had to contend with the rebels, but also the Royal Army and the revolting populace, who began openly denouncing him in the streets and attacking droids with impunity. Kalani understood that the only way to reverse the situation was to find and kill Dendup. Without him, the uprising would lack its unifying figure, and as such, it was the droid army's prime directive to locate the rebel base, a process which would not take long. The rebels, now buoyed by the success and at their strongest numerically, sought to end the droid occupation once and for all. Saw hoped to put the capital under siege and force the CIS out, no doubt with the knowledge that the inhabitants were on their side. Steela, who was now named overall commander of Dendup's forces, disagreed with this plan, as she did not want to put the civilian population at risk, probably believing the CIS would use them as meat shields, hostages, or worse, strike at them in retaliation. To this end, she sought to bring the CIS to them, fully knowing that time was not their ally. She made it blatantly clear their position was somewhere in the east of the city. This plan worked, and soon Kalani dispatched nearly the entirety of the droid army to face them. It would be all or nothing for both sides, and the battle to decide the fate of Onderon, the Battle of the Highlands, was set to begin. There are no numbers given to the strength of each side's forces, but the makeup of Rash's army was likely typical of most droid armies. However, it could be argued that it was rather outdated, given it had very little in the way of heavy equipment, outside of troop transports and AATs, much like forces fielded by the CIS at the start of the war. Dendup's force had no vehicles whatsoever, but they made up for this by utilizing trained ground and aerial mounts, Onderon's traditional and iconic Beastmasters, as well as LMGs and stationary field guns. When combined with their knowledge of the terrain, these were all going to have a deadly effect. The droids approached in column form, with the front made up of the regular B-1 battle droids, followed by the B-2 super battle droids. In between each formation were placed their vehicles, and not long after entering the Highlands, they were set upon by the Onderonians, who poured a murderous fire upon them from their predetermined positions. This was exacerbated by their complete control of the air, as well as being able to knock out the enemy's vehicles and swoop down upon the front. This advantage was soon overturned, as the droids released their secret weapon in the form of several HMP gunships. These ships had advanced ray shields, which weren't able to be penetrated by anything in the Onderonian arsenal, and so their front line began to crumble under their onslaught, pressing them back and knocking the Beastmasters out of the sky, reversing the rebels' former total control of the airspace. Tano contacted Kenobi and Skywalker and informed them of the situation, asking for assistance from the Republic, as they could no longer hide their backing anyways, thanks to Tano's prior intervention. Kenobi denied her request, stating the whole point of this operation was to train them, and for them and them alone to overcome the obstacles. Otherwise, the Jedi plan to limit the Republic's involvement would come to naught. Having said that, she told her to provide what assistance she could, and if the situation looked too grim for them, she was to extricate herself from the planet. She accepted and returned to the fight. Skywalker, however, disagreed, and tried to persuade Kenobi to reconsider, but he would not. reiterating that the purpose of the mission was to minimize Republic involvement. This gave Skywalker an idea, which Kenobi did consent to, and so he sent a message to Tano telling her to wait for assistance. Meanwhile, Dendap's forces were struggling to maintain their position under the assault of the gunships. They managed to delay the enemy long enough to receive Skywalker's promised help. This came in the form of a ship, out of which stepped the famed pirate Hondo Ohnaka, along with a gift of several rocket launchers, bought and paid for by Skywalker and Kenobi. Though one could question the morality of this under-the-table arms dealing, the Onderonians did not. Their base was soon attacked, most likely because the CIS forces had spotted Hondo's ship. After dispatching these scouts, the rebels at the base quickly made for the front line, where their beleaguered forces were fighting to the last. Saw was the first to shoot one of their new rockets, taking out a gunship on his first hit. With these in hand, they began to turn the tide as more and more gunships fell. The Onderonians fully regrouped and began to push the droids from the Highlands, though one tragedy remained in store for the freedom fighters. In their chase of the droids, a chance came for the droids to strike Dendap's HQ. Dispatching a sole gunship alongside several commando droids, they set upon the base and would have killed Dendap if not for the timely intervention of Lux, Tano and Steela. In the ensuing chaos, one of the falling gunships hit a cliff they were on, causing Lux and Steela to fall. Tano saved Lux and nearly saved Steela, but a rogue shot incapacitated Tano temporarily, causing Steela to fall to her death. The battle was won, but many fighters, including their commander, were felled. When the shattered remains returned to Aziz, Kalani knew the war was over. In a meeting with Dooku via hologram, Rash implored for more droids, which Dooku refused, telling Kalani to salvage what was possible and retreat to the planet Agamar. The tactical droid began to execute this order, but not before executing Rash. Though the conflict was minuscule compared to the galaxy-wide war, the operation was a success, proving that this kind of local resistance training was a viable strategy, and as such the Republic began to deploy teams to train insurgents on many CIS-held worlds. This deprived the CIS of the only offensive strategy they were capable of executing, that of garnering strength via adding new member worlds through subjugation of defenseless or disorganized populations. With this, the CIS would be even more hard-pressed to find solid footing for their attempted offensives. The twilight of the Confederacy had come, though no one knew this yet, and the clock was now truly ticking. In the next episode of this series, we will talk about the Scipio campaign in the homelands of the banking clan. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.